I want to dive into a couple of stories that I thought happening over the weekend and earlier today were representative of the lies that so many of us have had to deal with over the last 4 or 5 years. And I want to start with good news. It's good news if you didn't get the shot. Those of you who had to get the COVID shot are still furious. Those of you whose kids had to get the COVID shot to go to college or wherever it was, the Health and Human Services Secretary, Robert Kennedy, I believe CDC Director, Marty McCary, who we need to get on the program. We had him on a lot during the COVID era on this program. They announced this morning that they are removing the COVID shot from the recommended vaccine, quotation marks, for those of you watching on video, the recommended vaccine shot lineup. And we have that audio. This just happened in the last hour or so. Listen to that.
I couldn't be more pleased to announce that as of today, the COVID vaccine for healthy children and healthy pregnant women has been removed from the CDC recommended immunization schedule. Last year, the Biden administration urged healthy children to get yet another COVID shot despite the lack of any clinical data to support the repeat booster strategy in children.
That ends today. It's common sense and it's good science.
There's no evidence healthy kids need it today, and most countries have stopped recommending it for children.
We're now one step closer to realizing President Trump's promise to make America healthy again.
Okay, that's an extraordinary part of our national story now, that this shot, which they told you would prevent COVID from spreading, which they told you that you had to get or you were going to be fired from your job. Thank the Lord the Supreme Court stood up against it. Joe Biden, remember, maybe we can grab this audio because I know a lot of it gets memory hold, said that his patience was running short for those of you out there that had not gotten the COVID shot, like me, that we were going to experience a winter of death. I remember seeing that comment while I was chilling on a beach in Florida and thinking, the winter of death's not that bad down here in Florida right now. I think I sent out a tweet about it. And you had to joke about it because it was so infuriating that anybody was being forced to get this COVID shot. Buck was forced to get the COVID shot to go to his brother's wedding in New York. You couldn't go to McDonald's, some parts of places like New York and LA. I never got the shot. I feel fortunate that I did not. I feel fortunate that my young kids did not because it was never mandated for them. But I know a lot of you felt that you were obligated to get it. And it is just completely indefensible that this entire era has been allowed to happen and that many of the people that wagged their finger and lectured you about the COVID shot are now just pretending they never said any of the things that they did. And I want to hit you because I do think it's important with the data here. And I would say that many of you are listening to me today and listen to us on this program on a regular basis because you are still angry about what they said to you during COVID and what they tried to do to you. Remember this poll. This was from the Rasmussen. And it broke down percentages of people. 20%, nearly 60% of Democrats in January of 2022, this is January of 2022, believed that the unvaccinated, people like me and many of you listening right now, and an uncovid shotted, because it's not really a vaccine, 60% of Democrats believe that you should have been fined if you refused to get the COVID shot. This is crazy. Nearly 60% of Democrats believed that those of us who didn't get the COVID shot should be locked at home. This is nearly over 40% of Democrats believed that those who didn't get the COVID shot should be sent to quarantine camps. Should your children be taken from you if you are not getting them the COVID shot? 30% of Democrats said yes. And for people like me and Buck, over about 50% of Democrats said that people who criticize the COVID shot should be fined and imprisoned. I shared that audio, that clip from that poll yesterday because it's as if people want to pretend all of this never happened. And I see it in conjunction with Jake Tapper went on with Piers Morgan, and Piers Morgan asked him about the Biden cognitive and physical decline cover up. And Tapper now, who had a show on CNN for the entire Biden administration, he now says, you know, in many ways, the cover up of Biden's health, physical and mental, was worse than Watergate. Listen to this.
It is a scandal.
Yes.
It is without question, and maybe even worse than Watergate in some ways.
Right.
Because Richard Nixon was in control of his faculties when he wasn't drinking. We quote Archibald Cox, who was a Watergate investigator, talking about how powerful the presidency is and how presidents get surrounded by people who have a vested interest in keeping that president propped up.
Okay, worse than Watergate. And by the way, I think it was. Worse than Watergate, the decision for the media to not cover Biden's mental and physical decline. And now the COVID shot being pulled for kids. Let me ask you a question. How can anyone trust anyone in legacy media at this point? If they told you, as CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox did not, by and large, but the Washington Post and the New York Times, all of those major legacy media outlets that I just ran through, if they all told you that your kids needed to get the COVID shot or they were in danger of death, and if they all told you that Biden was the best mental and physical version of himself, and that anybody criticizing him was spreading disinformation and misinformation, how can anyone trust these people again? How can you, if you worked at all those places and you got the two biggest stories, maybe of your career, COVID, and I'm not just talking, by the way, about the shot, but now that the shot's being pulled for kids, I do think it's important to point out that they tried to force kids to get this shot in order to be able to go to school in many parts of the country. Now that they're pulling this shot, and now that everybody suddenly says, hey, you know what? Yeah, Biden mentally and physically, he wasn't up for the job. How can anyone, those are the two, I would argue, those are the two biggest stories in the last certainly 20 years. If you go back to 9/11, what has mattered more than those two things, COVID and Biden's mental and physical decline? They got all of that wrong. How do they still have jobs? How do they still have any audience at all? How in the world do these people still have the ability to make a living? We get things wrong as part of being human. All of us are imperfect. But if you listen to this program, many of you did what I did and didn't get your kids the COVID shot. I didn't get it myself. Many of you knew early on that Biden didn't have the mental and physical capacity to be president. Both of those things we've now been proven right on this program. In a honest, transparent, fully cognizant media universe, this show would do as it has continued to grow. And the legacy media, by and large, would collapse. And you know what's happened? That. Over time, all that matters in media is trust. Do you trust people to be honest with you and analyze complex situations and give you, to the best of their ability, good advice? To discuss complex issues in an intelligent fashion. That is the goal to me of anyone that sits behind this mic, of anyone that talks to a large audience every single day. We passed that test here. Now, make no mistake, what they are attempting to do is memory hole the entire COVID era and pretend that they never could have known better because the experts got it wrong, not them. And then the thing that they're actually experts in, which is theoretically politics and analyzing presidents, they're claiming that they just couldn't see past the incredible cover-up that the Biden administration has put in place. I would submit to you that you should not let them off the hook. You should remember this failure for the rest of their career. And I would also submit to you You know who the biggest advertisers are on CNN and MSNBC? By and large, drug companies. Do you think it was coincidental that they whiffed on the value of the COVID shot when all of these drug companies were spending hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars to advertise on their programs? I don't think so. And this is one where I think RFK Jr., who's a lifelong Democrat, is actually right. Why in the world are they accepting all of this money for prescription drug advertisements on programs where they regularly have to cover prescription drugs and whether or not they're necessary? I would submit to you it's not a coincidence that the prescription drug companies got beneficial coverage while spending hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. And then we all know that it wasn't that they got fooled, it was that they aren't actual journalists. They are propaganda stooges for Democrats, and they weren't willing to tell their audience the truth about Joe Biden until it became clear Biden was never going to be in power again. We'll talk about all this, but I think the conjunction of these two stories coming together is actually a moment of reckoning for the legacy media, which is leading to many of them being destroyed. And I think this is such a huge story that I think it needs to be hammered home. And we'll have some fun doing that today, among many other things. But I want to tell you also, supporting the people of Israel, more than just a belief, it's something we do on this program. It's something that I traveled to Israel to see for myself in December what exactly the organization, the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, the IFCJ, was doing. They're on the ground in Israel every day, blessing lives in real, tangible ways, feeding elderly Holocaust survivors who have nobody else. They're building bomb shelters to protect school children from rocket attacks. I've seen it all firsthand. They are helping to protect innocent people from the dangers that living in the Holy Land creates. When you give a gift of $45 to the IFCJ, you can help provide food, shelter, and more for those in desperate need. You're putting faith into action right where it's needed the most. Call 888-488-IFCJ. You can also visit ifcj.org to bless Israel today. Again, that's ifcj.org, 888-488-IFCJ.